I'd like to welcome you to this space, empowering migrants by using technology. We will share some experiences of the work at two different organizations using technology to boost social impact. And also throughout the conversation, we would love to know your own experiences. So we will be reading the chat and the Q&A section so we can build knowledge with everybody here. Others, Carla, hi. Carla, how are you? Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. For those who are in a different time zone. Yes, that's right. Good afternoon here because I'm in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. Where are you, Carla? Well, I'm currently in Houston, Texas, in the US. And I think the time is similar. I have 1:32 in my clock. Yes. So I'll also like to thank you for participating in this space. I think the conversations that we have had with Carla have been very useful and valuable to put together this presentation. And I think that these interregional links are essential today. So what do you think, Carla, if we introduce ourselves? Great. Let me share my screen. Great. Can you see that? Yes, perfect. Hi, Beatriz. How are you? I'm sorry, I'm late. I was running from one room to the other, but I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Beatriz. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Great. So we'll introduce ourselves then. Okay, I can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Carla Martinez. Carla de Jesus Martinez is my full name for those of you who have long last name. I am referred to as she, her, or ella, and I'm a technical trainer with MTHT, which we have some incredible announcement to make at the end of the conversation, but this is a movement technology help desk. So that's my contact information on the bottom there. I'll send this information to Carolina. I pass the floor to you now, Carolina. Thank you. I'm Carolina Barala. I'm an executive director in Wingo, which is a civic technology social organization. We empower citizens and digital transformation for social initiatives throughout Latin America by implementing tools and innovative technological developments. So please remember that you can ask any questions or write any comment in the chat in the Q&A session as well. I would love to hear from your experiences and comments. Can we go to the next one, Carla? Great. So we can start by talking about a little bit about the power of data. Let me go to the next slide. So before showing the questions that we have for you, we would like to provide you with some context about, well, there's a session that talks about the importance of databases. But in this particular session, we'll be focusing on the importance of using metrics whenever we are analyzing and using data that we acquire using databases in order to mobilize our communities. So if you want to comment on the chat, what type of different metrics would you use to measure whenever you are analyzing data or when you are trying to plan an event that may require data collection. You can write that on the chat, and I'll display the first question as an example in order to be able to get the ball rolling. So the first question is, if I want to prioritize water distribution in communities that really need it, what type of data metrics should I prioritize when I'm analyzing the situation? How can I identify what is the priority in terms of metrics? A is geography, B is the age. Let's say this gap of ages are the priorities, or would it be important to know the profession of the population as a metric whenever I'm analyzing the water distribution? I cannot see the chat. Carolina, can you help me? Yes, I can see it, Carla. We're waiting for their answers to see what they would prioritize. Great. So, Carolina, what would you prioritize in terms of metrics for this context? Well, I was thinking that there are all interesting metrics or information to know for, well, to understand the complete picture of the problem. However, with this exercise prioritizing one, I think that we would choose geography to be able to understand the closeness or how far away the places are from where water is. That's great. I'm reading the chat. Coordination and accompanying, it would say geography. Juliana says that she would prioritize the profession to prioritize health issues. Okay, and there are no wrong answers here. Everything is based on the focus that you as a leader in the organization you would like to take. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have another exercise, another question here. And it reads as follows: to provide information about reproductive health to young people, what data metric would you prioritize, or what metrics would you use for the distribution of information about reproductive health to young people? A, the age; B, number of family members living in the house; and C, the ethnical origin of the participants. And I can share a little bit about my option. The three options are important. I am divided between A and B because, well, A, if we want to focus on young people, the data metrics should be prioritized in terms of the age. Let's say from 15 to 20 years of age. And we can prioritize different schools. But also metric B, which is the number of family members at home, is interesting because if there's a family that has a lot of members at home, youngsters will be the priority in that home. So we may have a debriefing session within the same family. Carla saying that she would prioritize the age, Guadalupe as well. And Jennifer says the ethnical origin, which is also very interesting in terms of thinking about what information or the appropriateness of the information. Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much. I'm displaying all of the options. And in our presentation today, we will focus on geography metrics and what's the impact of it, or what power can we derive from using this metric in databases, and also to empower our communities. Here I'll share a case study that is quite popular, unfortunately not for good reasons, but well, now with the pandemic situation and the COVID-19 pandemic, we really could see how marginalized communities were even more affected in this pandemic. And I wanted to share a little bit of the context about the vaccines. Serum is the main and the biggest institutions for distributing vaccines, and is originated in India. So Serum actually was the main provider for COVID vaccines. And in April, they're already distributing more than 100 million doses starting in April. Now, the information with geography that I included in the bottom, in the left side of the screen, you can see the summary of the information, the data, and the amount of people that have already been vaccinated in India. I mean, understanding that Serum is the main distributor for vaccines, it is also important to understand that in India, the marginalized communities are not receiving the distribution or are not being prioritized in terms of the distribution of this company that is located in India. Here we can see that only 1.6% of the population has been vaccinated. And the total is 21.4 millions. And on your right, you can see the information from Texas and the US. I am in Texas and I am in the US. And we can see the distribution of the vaccines is prioritized in these areas, specific areas. In Texas, 25.1% of the population has been vaccinated. And in general, in the US, 28.9% of people have been vaccinated. And just to provide some context, the US is not the main distributor or one of the biggest distributors even in providing the creation of the vaccines. But they have been the priority in who is receiving the vaccines. So that has provided a lot of details in terms of which are the marginalized communities in terms of the metrics or amount of information. And we see any reactions. Yes, I was telling Carla also that the reality in Latin America is similar to the percentages in India. So if you want to write down in the chat the percentages of vaccination for the to those vaccinated people or the fully vaccinated people in Argentina, the percentage is 1.9%. So you can tell us in the chat if you know the percentages in your countries. And it's really far away from the amounts that we've seen in the States. I think that Colombia is 2 point something, almost 3%. Wow. Imagine if Serum, which is the main distributor, will be focused on India for a month, 100 million doses, they would increase the number of vaccinated people in just 1 month focused on India. So, I mean, we other countries have been thinking about that, uh, besides the US, of course. Yes, yes, I completely agree. And also how important it is to be able to compare this data and to understand the geographical distribution. Compare it also with other economical variables or political variables will help us to understand a little bit better the reality of the virus. Yes, exactly. Great. I'll pass to the next slide. Yes, perfect. We also wanted to tell you a little bit about the concept of civic technology, which is what we discussed in the conversation, that we think it could be interesting because in your organizations you can think about technology tools helping in your work or the projects that you do. So civic technology has as the objective to empower citizens to strengthen democracies. This type of technology wants to improve the participation of citizens to achieve a better interaction between the citizens and the governments. There's something important to understand. When we talk about civic technology or technological tools, we are not thinking about only the existence of the technology will generate by itself empowerment of people or citizens or results. Technology will accompany, join social processes, and will help those process to be conducted. That's why it's important to think about technology developments and to think about them in a way that is related to the society or people using that technology, that the technology wants to use, and to consider the social impact that we are looking for, so as not to prioritize technology to the solution of the problem. So some of the civic technology ways are the platforms that boost citizen participation, or platforms that will open up information or data, as Carla was saying, that will allow us to understand the reality better and provide tools as citizens in order to ask for a social transformation or how to change our reality. There are also platforms that visualize social problems and could have a political incidence in order to transform the decision making and having a better society. Also, sometimes they generate a transfer process, because having information can help us understanding realities and transform realities to solve some of the problems that we have. And in many cases, there articulate other aspects of the society, such as the government, organization, or local communities. So we were telling you about this information because there are ways of using or creating technology, so you can take them into account when you work with your communities and think about those problems that you are facing every day, how technology can help you or accompany you in solving those problems. So now I'll tell you some of the examples that we have to get this theory to reality on how to use data for social transformation. Okay, real cases. So the first case is being focused in generating elections in 2020. And we will be talking a little bit about indigenous voters and how you use this tactic of prioritizing geography in order to mobilize these communities, and how to change elections in the US last year. A little bit of a context. Arizona holds the majority of the Navajo communities, and there are about 85,000 registered or qualified voters. So they can use their votes for any election. And out of these 85,000, 76,000 individuals went to vote. That is around 85% of the that we see compared with the results in the last year. So out of these 76,000, 74,000 voted for the blue candidate. And what we can see in terms of geography is, well, the maps that you're seeing here. These are particular areas in Arizona. On the right side, we can see where the Navajo communities reside in all the yellow areas, or the terrain that cover these communities. And on the left, we can see the geography of votes that were collected in those same areas based on the blue or red candidate. So this is a visual representation about how is it that geographically a community that have been marginalized previously and now can have work with their communities and help changing the results of the elections. So are there any reactions about this topic? Because I wanted to tell you a little bit about what tactics we used, or what decisions were taken in terms of how to prioritize that metric. Yes, actually, I was going to ask you. We don't have comments in the chat now, but I was going to ask you how you reach this conclusion. Great. So basically, this specific case that was focused on Arizona is incredibly successful. Communities were mobilized. It was very effective. Communities could vote, but there are other states or areas in the US that face more difficult situations. So basically, the technique that we had, and that it was consulted with local organizations, was to acquire the information of registered voters that are already registered and are identified as indigenous people. And then afterwards, we did a geographical analysis on where most of the people is located for this particular segment. So we analyzed it, because if most communities are located in the southern part of Arizona state, and my focus is to try and having most of the people, or even 85% of the people, to go out and vote, then I'll focus more my attention in the south of Arizona in election time. Another metric that was used despite geography was the voters' activity. the priority was to contact people that are not regular voters, that don't regularly vote or are not very active. I mean, they can vote, but they have never voted from the moment they were able to do so, or maybe they just voted one or twice in the last 15 years. So that was another metric that was considered in order to identify the analysis. And the database that was used to be able to acquire this data is called BAM, which is a database that acquires all the registration of voters in the US and has different metrics in order for you to acquire specific data. So that's how the success came to be. I don't know if someone is asking any questions because I cannot see the chat. Great, we don't have questions now, but at the end of the presentation, we are going to leave all the tools that we are using so they can know the spelling of the name or how to look for them if they need them. And, and in this case, I think this is very demonstrative or graphical in terms of proving the power of analyzing the territory where we work, all the information there is to reach certain conclusions and really focus our work to reach the results that we need. That's correct, yes. Okay, then we may move forward. Yes. Well, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the case of Caminos de la Villa, which is a platform that tries to make visual certain problems in the villas in Buenos Aires, which are neighborhoods that live with vulnerable rights. We did a partnership with Civic, and what's interesting about this platform and why we chose it is that new needs arise in this territory, understanding that not everybody had the possibility of claiming more infrastructure or public work whenever they have problems such as floodings or lack of trash collection, power problems where people really didn't have any means of denouncing or complaining about this. So we decided to think about this platform as a possible solution. And we always work with the community, which was key in every stage of the project. This is a project that has been going on for quite a few years, because in the beginning, what happened is that we didn't have any maps of the villas. If you can go to the next slide. Yes, so these neighborhoods were located in these gray squares that are usually associated with construction sites or company or sites. But what happened is that we saw a lot of things in these areas. Next, Carla. Yes, after and before. Yes, this is not after, but this is a satellite image of how it looks, everything that is contained in those gray squares. And we can see or find the first difficulty, and we decided to put together with the community, participative community. We have working days with neighborhoods living in these squares. We walk through these neighborhoods together with some elements such as a GPS that will allow us to map everything, and also with a pencil and a piece of paper to understand the reality of the neighborhood, and with real people. For example, the post office or the mailman who really knew the spaces, the corners in the streets, and the geography of these places. And also together with the community, we constitute the name of the project, the logo, the whole brand image, which is very important because whenever we are building technology, we need to think about the needs and the use the technology of people who is going to use it. So it's better to build it with those people that will be using the technology and that can choose the name of the platform that they're going to use.
So in order to tell you how this works, let's move on. This was the before, this was the after. So this information we were able to upload it to OpenStreetMap that allows for anyone to have access to this map to use it. And this is information that not only will be left for this project, but hopefully for future projects as well. And what happened with this Caminos de la Villa, we had a big impact on several newspapers about of how these points appeared on the maps, right? And this created actually a social push to find this type of maps in the official maps of the government. So these villas actually appeared in the government maps because now the government is actually including the whole map of the city, including those villas that are part of the city, definitely. So after this mapping, we created the platform called Caminos de la Villa, and you can go into the link to see how it looks. And people can actually go in and make their comments, and because it was the first point that we actually mentioned, the idea is to generate a strategy by means of those reports and these comments. And years later, what happened here was that the government decided that urbanization efforts were going to be implemented in the city of Buenos Aires, which are processes that we are trying to include in the villas this type of public services, better infrastructure, opening streets, and making villas part of the actual landscape of the city. And when we announced this, also, these urbanization efforts were announced to be made with the community. However, when these processes started, the information that the government was providing the community was quite complex. Why? Well, because we were talking about blueprints with very specific technical information that you needed some prior knowledge in architecture to actually make sense of. So, also, there wasn't any kind of unified information. You didn't have the whole view of what was going to happen in that neighborhood. So, understanding this process, we decided to make a new version of Caminos de la Villa in which we allowed for uploading mapped information of where these works were going to take place, what was the allocated budget for each of those works. This is information that the government should have provided anyway. So the idea here is to open this information to everyone so that people can actually own the process and to understand what is going to happen in terms of location of the houses, and which was actually very interesting and important for the lives of the people in this area. Now, after this happened and we had successful comments, when COVID-19 arrived, we detected new problems clearly related to the restriction of movement, to the restriction of a restriction outside of the villas, for example, but inside the villas, we couldn't find any kind of basic services. There was no ATMs access, for example, there were no access to pharmacies. And let's say that the most important problems that had to deal with the lack of connectivity and the lack of basic services like water. There were some villas in the Buenos Aires province that had no access to running water. However, the government was pushing the message of washing your hands every day and continuously, right? So how can we match that to the reality? The idea, what we did here is we created a layer in Camino de las Villas where they can report a problem related to these issues. And we also added with a tool called Tableau, and all of these tools are free. And we will leave the links at the end of this presentation And we created a view of how these cases reported grew every day compared to the rest of the city, because not having a basic service like water or running water, cases were growing much more. So this, of course, had its impact in public policy and public discussion for several days. This was actually part of the national conversation, and at the end of the day, a specific plan to detect the infections levels in these villas in order to implement more ad hoc type of policies. But the point here is that we are building technology in the midst of changing social contexts. And the purpose here is for people that live in these neighborhoods actually can report the problems that they face and find ways to solve them. So it is important to understand how technology is also changing with time to accompany the processes, and we should not just stay with an obsolete tool that we used to use before. So I'm going to see if on the chat there are any questions. So far, there are no questions. And I wanted to say that this is only one of many tools that actually are around related to civic technology. And last year, we worked on a tool called Marea Digital, which looks for empower people that live in Buenaventura, Colombia. We also work in another platform called A Tu Servicio Bogotá, by which people can rate the quality of care services to the different clinics they attend to. And this allow people to understand what service they can choose to go based on the experiences of previous patients. And this platform actually is connected, is linked with the Bogota Health Ministry so that they understand what's happening and how are people rating their services. And they, maybe if they don't change it immediately, at least they know what people that have access to this type of services think. So people that have access to this type of technology need to understand that their voice allows other people to hear what they're saying. We also work with another organization in Colombia, an organization that accompanies vulnerable children, and there is a Facebook group in which the girls they support each other and they talk to each other around different issues they face. And this organization asked for our support with a digital tool so that we could show, with of course considering confidentiality, what are the subject matters that these girls are talking about, and in that way actually amplify the voices of these girls, that it's a very, very important voice to take into consideration when we are drafting public policies. So we created a visualization with this type of conversation topics to have impact in government policies. There's another tool in Brazil called Uniendo Voces, joining voices, and this is geared towards migrants from Venezuela, particularly that live in Brazil. And what this platform does is provide information around the rights that they have, the services that they have access to, what are the resources that they can go in order to find work. So this also generates a series of polls through WhatsApp and social media in order to understand what does this community think around these very relevant issues, what problems they are facing in this country, and in this way they can also visualize what people think, what are they feeling, how do they understand the situation they're in. So therefore the importance of actually providing the voice or amplifying the voice of those people that are in the middle of these conflicts or these social problems. Also, if you know other tools that are available, it would be really great for you to share this type of comments and questions, and we can generate a collaborative effort here. So, Carla, is it okay if we move forward? Yes, perfect. Okay, we were talking about the lessons learned with Carla with each of these cases of how technology is being used. And it is very, very useful that we are able to generate this collabor- collaborative intelligence because we have had these experiences before, and it is important to know how to do this in order to reach better solutions. That's great. Okay, let me just add a couple of points here. The first one is that before any kind of initiative or activity or project that will be rolled out in any community that have especially been marginalized and have had no contact or support from other organizations or from the government itself, the respect and trust elements are very important here uh, for us as organizations because we are trying to have access and support this type of communities. So, if as an organization I am trying or I am actually gathering data from a community to provide support in this way, we need the respect and the trust from that specific community. And that's when we talk about data and databases and transparency of how the data is actually being used from these communities. And who are you going to distribute this information to, or who has access to the information? What is the purpose of gathering so much data? And how are you ensuring that the information that you have gathered from this community is actually safe? Also, how are you developing trust and respect from this community so that in the long term you are able to see the change that you are trying to to promote? I totally agree with that. And in terms of respect, also, it's very, very important to think about how to move beyond our own experiences, our own prejudices in terms of building solutions. And even more so when we talk about technology, it is quite normal for us to think about the possibilities of a phone, right? So if I have a phone that has an internet connection, I usually think that that is a normal thing for everyone. But when we build this type of solution, sometimes we tend to forget any kind of use that we provide to these type of tools might be different for other people. And we need to understand how people are using technology. Here we have a photo of one of the workshops that we had in one of these neighborhoods, where we brought basically this big sheets of paper, and people could write down uh, what apps they were using and how, because it's not the same to use WhatsApp to send audios or send photos than to type or write. That is different uses of technology. And it is very important to understand, for example, for us, what type of devices the family has or is using. So, from that point, which is understanding the use of technology from communities themselves, we will be better equipped to actually build a tool that serves its purpose at a long term. So, we want this type of platforms to be also designed for people that have no direct access to the internet. So this is something really important from the very beginning, from the design stages. Do not just get limited to our own prejudices or our own ideas of the community that we will be working with. And I think it's very normal for us to think about these issues in other things, but when we talk about technology, we tend to forget that. Yes, I've noticed that. And we should always take into account the conditions of the communities that we are trying to work with. because many of these communities have little to no resources, and it really represents a vulnerable situation in which we as organizations have the privilege of providing support. And we definitely need to take into account the situation that these communities are in. In terms of the systems around data that we are building, yeah, definitely, Carla. Thank you very much for that. And a final lesson learned that is really useful to share with you is to work in short iterations to learn quickly from them. Because as I said before, we work in social contexts. We work with people, so we will be constantly learning new things. And the fact that sometimes we feel that something will work, we have done everything right in our mind. When reality, when we give it contact with reality, we realize that it was not that good. So that is why it is important to do quick iterative tests in order to realize whether it really works. Because we see the actual results, we have a quick feedback loop here, and we will be able to build upon that basis. We should not wait months and months until we hear back from a test, because we will certainly be using an inefficient use of resources if that's the case. Okay, great. So let's move on to the tools. Yeah, this is what everybody came for, right? Yes. So before we talk about this, let me share with you a comment here. How easy or difficult is to replicate this experience with other urban centers? Well, the experience we had with Caminos de la Villa has been already replicated in other parts. I don't want to say if it's easy or difficult. I just want to say that it's possible. And depending on the needs, depending on the context, that's the thing that you need to take into account in order to understand how hard it might be. But the main comment is it is possible to do, and that experience will allow us to build better solutions in the future. So it is very important to assess the situation that we're in when we bring this type of tools to a community. If you have a question about this, you can send me an email, you can contact me, no problem. I will share my contact details. Yes, okay. And also to share from my side, once a platform has been established or used, what we can share after that are the best practices or the tactics and practices that we found most useful or problems we encountered. So there's a lot of talk around how to plan strategies and how to build a successful campaign, or how the support to these communities will be done, which is, of course, really important. And all of that tends to be more accessible when a platform is more established in a way. And for example, right now we have on screen a list of useful tools that are low cost, and they are absolutely established. They have resources page, and I don't know, Carolina, if you want to share some of those tools you added here. Yeah, the first one is called Laboratorio de Tecnología Cívica. This is a blog where we share our experiences with these platforms. We accompanied many organizations that were using this technology. So as Carla was saying, we can learn plenty from the mistakes that we are about to make. So if you want to learn more about these issues, you can start there, reading about previous experiences. Then we have Kobo Toolbox, which is also a free tool for organizations. Mapbox is the one that we use for Caminos de la Villa and other projects, where we can add design layers in maps. Also, the link that I'm adding here, this is the Wingu tool that we have been doing or using, and how the licenses were obtained. We also have, for example, Tableau or OpenStreetMap that were very useful in Caminos de la Villa project for the mapping part of it. Tableau was really good for the visualization and the analysis of data. I also added a couple of tools here. QGIS is also a free platform that allows to import geography layers and also allows you to make or create your own visualization of maps that can be used in other kinds of analysis. Also, the studies that I shared with all of you, those images and those results, can be created in this platform, which is 100% for free and very accessible. Many people also like using Google Sheets, which is the Google platform here. We can use several analysis using, for example, different tools. It's also a free tool. You need access to the internet for this one, however, and many different types of analysis can be done with these tools. The opportunities here are plentiful, but these Google Suite tools are very useful. Perhaps another platform that you might not have considered is WhatsApp. It's free, is accessible. Everybody has WhatsApp on their phone. If you don't have WhatsApp on your phone, I might not know who you are. So everybody has the WhatsApp app on their phone. So WhatsApp is a really good way of distributing data. That's what we say, that the person that is the most communicative is probably the person that is the better at managing data. So that would be how to use WhatsApp. Also, Signal is another tool that focuses a lot in getting encrypted data between people A to B, talking about security and privacy and who has access to our information. So Signal has priority on that specific point. Telegram, for example, as well, is very similar to WhatsApp, but has other more advanced features. Canva. Canva has a subscription platform. It has a free version, but if you require a little bit more features, you can subscribe and pay. This allows to make digital projections, or if you have a Instagram or social media campaign, Canva helps you create your digital designs. And the creativity that this platform allows for is incredible. I am a big fan of Canva. Yeah, many of us are. And the last three are the following. Action Network is a tool that allows to establish communication with communities with technological platforms online. And this also allows to manage memberships, also to have specific emails. It has a tool to make a wide distribution of texts. VAN is the platform that was used to help indigenous voters to go out and vote. This is a platform that obtains the data of registered voters. Hustle. Hustle is another platform that helps people send texts to multiple people at a time. So, for example, I have been able to send more than 15,000 texts in 20 minutes. So, this is something that I couldn't do physically with my phone. So, there are many platforms that help users do that, and Hustle is one of them. I don't know if people in the chat has a recommendation of other platforms or other tools that are free, or maybe you are taking note of all of these wonderful tools. Yeah, I am also taking notes of everything you're saying, Carla. Okay, we actually have a very short in time right now. So I think it would be really important for you to tell us the good news. Of course, yeah. So the good news here that I shortly shared at the beginning of this presentation is that the Migration and Forced Displacement Program, in collaboration with Hispanics in Philanthropy, we will be able to provide support services in terms of the many different data systems and technology tools similar to the ones that we talked about today. So if you are an organization that has been in touch with HIP, you will be able to get the support of us, basically, based on the use of several technological tools that many grassroots organizations have been able to increase their reach, especially during COVID-19. So the need of combining grassroots organizations and initiatives that actually reflect the values of our struggles and fights, and leveraging the use of these technologies is a perfect combo. So let's say that I have the tools, I have the organizations, we're ready to take action, but the problem is that we don't have maybe the ability to know how to use these tools. So that's when the technology and movement lab comes in. We are there gladly to help you understand and train you around all of these technological tools, uh, the ones that have been shown on screen or others that you have been using. All of this is organized online, and the idea here is to have a virtual conversation, and the support is very, very accessible. So I want to really thank Hispanics in Philanthropy for the support that they are providing to all of these organizations. This is the support that we are offering you, we are providing, we're here to support that, and we hope that you take advantage of this, because most of trainers are people that are in different areas that do not have the technical resources. So it's really, really nice to know that an organization that we are part of has the ability to support people in this way. We are training people in the community to use these technical tools. Carla, this is an amazing, amazing news. So it's amazing that we are able to show this type of support to organizations around the world. As I was saying at the very beginning, I am very excited from Argentina to work with other colleagues in the US and to be able to share experiences around all of this. So thank you very much to everyone who have been listening to this session, and thank you to Hispanics in Philanthropy for being able to organize this type of platforms to share experiences around the world. Yes, and this information will be shared with everyone, I'm pretty sure. But if you need the contact of any person in order to have access to this type of support, please don't hesitate to contact me. Here on screen, you can see now our contact details. If you have questions or you want to know more about the tools that we have talked about, the platforms that have been created by Wingu. So all of that is really, really fabulous opportunity. So please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much, Carla. Thank you very much, Beatriz. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you to share these successful experiences that allow to impact positively in our organizations by means of the technology available. Thank you very much. Okay, please don't miss the other talks because they are very interesting. Take care. Bye bye.